Hello. Today's video looks at Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Sonnet 43, a poem that frankly I think is a bit of a mushy, soppy love fest shoehorned into 14 lines. However, I have the romantic sensibilities of a dung beetle. I'm assured by people with bigger hearts and souls than mine that this is a beautiful celebration of romantic love. And we're going to explore the language, the structure, have a look at some contextual factors, compare it to another poem, and then crank out a paragraph or two. And we'll start with the bare bones of the thing. It's in keeping with the sonnet tradition, Sonnet 43, because it's celebrating romantic love. And in this case, the intensity, the vitality and the purity of the love that she feels for Robert Browning, a bloke who went on to be her husband. And although she wrote it in her 30s, during the 1840s, I don't think it was published until 1850. Now I'm going to assume that you've read the poem and we're just going to jump straight into some analysis of language. This is the first of two bits of language that we're going to look at. Light imagery. She says at some point, I love thee, blah, 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 by sun and candlelight. And we'll go on now to explain the significance of that light imagery. Hopefully it'll be illuminating. Boom tish. And here we are. With its connotations or associations of warmth, of sustaining life, the light imagery serves to highlight how vital her love is to her existence. You know, loving this guy is very good for her spiritual growth. Crops in the ground, sunlight makes them grow. Obviously, we're not saying that Browning grows physically on the back end of this love. What we're saying is it fosters spiritual growth. Also, light imagery, the sun, has connotations of warmth. So this love brings a warmth into her life. That can be a sense of security, and without getting too 18 certificate, perhaps a sense of arousal as well. In some way, it provides physical warmth as well. Our final bit of linguistic analysis locks onto this metaphor of the lost saints. Barrett Browning says that she loves this guy the way she used to love her lost saints. Now, obviously, we're not talking about lost in the sense of get this guy a sat-nav. We're talking about lost in the sense that she's abandoned or rejected her religious faith. And that religious imagery is very significant because, juxtaposing or linking Robert Browning with saints, that's suggesting that this love has a kind of intensity and a purity to it that's not dissimilar to religious devotion. And we can forge a contextual link between this poem and the era when it was written. These two piddly little words, lost saints, we can do a lot with that. Because when Barrett Browning here is referring to her loss of religious faith, that mirrors or reflects a cultural shift that was going on at the time. You heard of the period known as the Enlightenment. This was in the 18th and 19th century. Developments in science meant an erosion of the influence of religion in people's lives. In a sense, science was usurping or overtaking religion as a means of explaining everything in the world. We could no longer say, well, why does that happen? Well, it's God, isn't it? Now we've got scientific explanations. Galvanism explains movement in the body. Experiments on rats have shown how the respiratory system, not the magic finger of God, explains the sustenance of human life. Now, I'm not sneering at religion here. Some of the smartest people I know are religious. What I'm saying is in the Enlightenment, religion started to lose its purchase, its stranglehold on people's lives. We're going to look now at a structural feature of this poem. The idea that this poem is presented in the sonnet form. Now, strap yourselves in here, folks, because this is going all the way to level 9, A-star distinction, whatever the great minds at the education department are calling it this week. I'll be honest, structure bores me. I love language. That's what draws people towards English teaching. I'm not really interested in how it's shaped. In a sense, I'm more interested in the beer than the bottle. That's what matters to me. But I've worked out something very clever we can say about sonnets in relation to this poem. Now, hopefully it won't sound too much like some egghead dribbling on with himself about Petrarchan and Shakespearean sonnets here, but bear with me because it is bricks and mortar to our high-level response that we're going to knock out later. A Petrarchan sonnet, one main difference that it has with other sonnets is that it does not end on a rhyming couplet, whereas a Shakespearean sonnet does. So the last two lines of a Shakespearean sonnet rhyme. Check out Sonnet 43. It's a Petrarchan sonnet because it does not end on that rhyming couplet. Well, big whoop, you may be thinking, not unreasonably. why should I give a tuppenny fig about the fact that this poem, Sonnet 43, is a Petrarchan sonnet? And here's our answer. Now, it could be said that ending on a rhyming couplet like a Shakespearean sonnet, what this does is it ushers in a sense of unity of two lines mirroring two people coming together. But I'm going to reject that idea. What I'm going to suggest is that the rhyming couplet of a Shakespearean sonnet end ushers in a sense of closure, a kind of ending or a rounding off. Now, bear with, this is where it gets clever. Because Sonnet 43, by rejecting the Shakespearean sonnet form and appropriating or using the Petrarchan sonnet form, avoids ending on a couplet, which means it avoids a sense of closure or rounding off or finishing. Why is this significant? Hold on to your hat nice and tight, this could blow your mind, because by doing that, by rejecting the couplet ending, what it's doing is implying that this love is everlasting. It will continue forever. Nothing is going to stop or check it. Nothing is going to usher in a sense of closure to this profound, intense, emotional attachment she has to Robert Browning. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have just hit a big pulsing vein of exam gold. Examiner is going to be spooning the drool off his chin if you manage to shoehorn this into your response. So let's do that right now. Let's take those ideas about the sonnet structure, the sonnet form, and weave it into an exam response. Here's a model question shaped around the Edexcel board's specifications, but a lot of exam boards will do something similar. Let's have a look. Compare how emotions and relationships are presented in Sonnet 43 and one other poem. In your answer, you should consider the poet's use of language, form and structure, the influence of the context in which the poems are written. And because I used to be a painter decorator, I've done a glorious job here of laying on green emulsion to highlight the keywords in the question. Compare, because it's a comparative question. How refers to the language and the structural techniques that the poet uses to present ideas about emotions in relationships. And of course, the main poem we're looking at is Sonnet 43, but we've got a link to one other poem too. We have to look at language and structure with Edexcel. They're very snarky about that. If you neglect structure, you are snookered. Your grade is going to go into free fall. And of course, we've got to look at context as well, linking to the era when the poem was written or anything significant we know about the writer's life. So let's have a look at this high-level response. I'll read it, and I'm just going to identify some of the things I've done which are particularly clever. Remember, the question was about emotions in relationships. In Sonnet 43, Barrett Browning employs the sonnet form to convey her feelings towards her lover, Robert Browning. The sonnet form is traditionally associated with romantic love. It is therefore the ideal vehicle for highlighting powerfully to the reader the intensity of her love towards Browning. Moreover, it is significant that Barrett Browning employs the Petrarchan sonnet form because it does not finish with the rhyming couplet, unlike a Shakespearean sonnet. Couplets can create a sense of closure. By avoiding a final couplet, the poet engagingly highlights to the reader a sense of her loving feelings, knowing no boundaries. There'll be no end, no closure to her intense love for Browning. Now, what's the crack with the words in black? These words are responding to the exam question. Do you remember it was about emotions and relationships? Well, feelings, intensity of love, loving feelings, intense love. These all refer back to that question, keeping us task focused. We're not honking on with ourselves, we're not waffling. You'll notice the evidence, the stuff in blue, isn't a quotation from the text. I'm simply referring to it. My evidence needs to back up the point, so I'm just saying the sonnet is linked to love. I remember a couple of years ago, some div actually wrote out the entire sonnet as the evidence to back up his point. That's not smart, don't do that. I'm pretty sure you know that's not best practice. And finally, with this paragraph, you'll appreciate I've given a good analysis. I've said, she uses the sonnet form because it captures the love she feels for Browning. But then, with that connected, moreover, I've launched into that deeper analysis, looking at the whole Petrarchan Shakespearean sonnet thing. If you do an Edexcel, then you have to compare two poems from a cluster. Look at that second paragraph, the bit I've highlighted in yellow. The coverage of the two poems need not be equally weighted, but the second poem should have substantial treatment. Now, given that this is a closed book exam and you have to rely on your memory to recall the quotes, this is a good thing, this is a blessing. And you'll see with my comparative paragraph here, I've not gone into the same depth as I have for the Sonnet 43. I'm assuming Sonnet 43 is the named poem, and that will actually be printed in the exam paper. So here is my comparative paragraph, which you're welcome to read at your leisure, and you'll appreciate I've not gone into the same level of depth here. I'm saving my showboating, my level 9 skills for that first poem in the comparison. For our final structural point, we're going to look at enjambment in this poem. That's where one line goes on to the other line without a full stop or a comma or a punctuation mark slowing down the line change. We'll also link this line to context as well, so stay tuned. Barrett Browning says that she loves this Johnny, she loves this guy with the passion put to use. That's the end of the first line. Notice I've got a slash to indicate that there. With the passions put to use in my old griefs. Now, enjambment, as my goofy cartoon indicates here, creates pace because, of course, it speeds up the line change if you've got no punctuation slowing it down. If we stopped there, we could walk away with a medium mark, but, of course, the smarter, the more able student asks why. Why is the poet used enjambment to create pace here? So here's our advanced answer. The pace created by the structural device, enjambment, serves to capture the energy and the passion that characterise her love for Browning. You know, there's a real vibrancy ushered in by the enjambment. There's a real sense that this love is alive and thumping. You've also got, if you want to go deeper and analyse some language here, you've got the p from passion and put and the g from grief. These words are known as plosives. I could call them informally spitting words. And plosives, again, shore up or add to that passionate tone because, of course, you have to kind of force them out. They're very conducive to an ardent, passionate tone. But as I say, we can do a bit more with that line, old griefs, and link it to a contextual factor, the poet's relationship with her father. That old griefs refers to the troubled relationship that she had with her dad. He was a slave trader, not a bucket of chuckles, a real domineering character, a bit of a bully. She clashed with Daddy-O because he was a bully, and also because she was a passionate anti-slavery campaigner. And if you wanted to play amateur psychologist here, armchair psychologist, you could say that the reason she elopes, the reason she runs off with Robert Browning, it's not just because she was so drawn to what she was running to, i.e. this hunky bloke Robert Browning, it's also a measure of the misery that she was leaving behind, that fractious, that troubled relationship with her dad. That was like the fuel or the catalyst to her running off with Browning. I mean, you can well imagine what a tension convention it would be, staying at home with a prize Herbert like that, ruling the roost. Finally, the conclusion. This is where you can pick out the prime rib from the gristle of my ramblings. I won't bother reading it. Read it at your leisure. Sums up everything I've honked on about. As a parting gift, I've tonked in these two paragraphs as well. This analyses the enjambment, I think, and also looks at that contextual factor about the conflict with Daddy. I've underlined the words that link to the question about emotions and relationships. The examiner obviously does not want you to do that. You'd think you've been eating lead paint or something. Don't do that. This is just to draw your attention to how my response explicitly answers the question set. Oh, another important point. I've really tidied up my serial killer scrawl, my dodgy handwriting, because believe you me, nothing is going to get up the examiner's hooter more than having to decipher hieroglyphics. If you've got shabby, scruffy handwriting, I'd get that sorted. You really want to be aiming for legibility. You hear horror stories of examiners simply refusing to mark scripts if the writing is too illegible. Hey, last orders at the bar, folks. That's Sonnet 43, assaulted, compared to another poem, and spanning the silken exam paragraphs. This is probably the last video I'll be able to churn out before the exam. Believe it or not, they do take a while to make. You know, it takes a lot of time to get looking this bad. All it remains for me to do is wish you the very best of British luck in the exam hall. Go to it.